A Ford pickup truck became a deadly weapon of mass destruction, a tool for a terror attack, killing and wounding dozens of New Year's revelers in the French Quarter of New Orleans.
As we know, this is not just an act of terrorism. This is evil.
New Orleans Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick says the driver, identified as 42-year-old Shamsud Din Jabbar, an American citizen and Army veteran from Texas, defeated security measures that were in place to prevent vehicle attacks.
That this particular terrorist drove around onto the sidewalk and got around the hard target, where he did have a car there. We had barriers there, we had officers there, and they still got around.
The college football quarterfinal game at the Superdome in New Orleans was postponed from last night until today, and in the months ahead, New Orleans is playing host to the Super Bowl and, of course, Mardi Gras, both major events that will draw hundreds of thousands to the city's nightlife scene.
We recognize we got a problem here, right? We're going to fix it. It is going to be a top priority as we go into the Super Bowl and Mardi Gras, and the solution that we're going to come up with is going to be a permanent one.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry says bollards in the French Quarter are being replaced as part of a larger infrastructure improvement plan ahead of the Super Bowl, but that project was not completed for New Year's Eve. The FBI also says there is a manhunt. Investigators do not believe Jabbar acted alone, a conclusion drawn just hours after the attack.
It would appear to me that one of two things. One is that they did have images of other people, either perhaps assisting this person, putting the IEDs in the separate places apart from the vehicle that was used to commit this tragic act. That maybe they had witnesses or they had video of that.
Bill Daly is a former FBI investigator. We spoke Wednesday afternoon following a briefing from federal, state, and local officials.
And the other thing could be, as quickly as they identified him, he perhaps had showed some connection already. Perhaps he was someone on their radar who had some affiliation. So we just don't know which it was, but it does seem to be that maybe the, let's say, complexity, if you will, and maybe that's used in a broad term, but the planning that went into this with regard to acquiring a weapon, a gun, creating improvised explosive devices, meaning getting materials for those items, and then the planning around this event, what time it might take place, perhaps looking for kind of the soft spot in the security perimeter. That may have also indicated to the FBI that there were other people that were in support of him, collaborators, and maybe in the background helping him.
Does anything that we know yet about this profile jump out at you? An American citizen from Texas, the FBI believes honorably discharged from the U.S. Army?
Well, there are a couple of things here. One is that, unfortunately, it also harbors back to the tragic incident that took place in San Bernardino a number of years ago. And somebody named Saeed Farouk was an American citizen who helped orchestrate that, along with, I believe, his wife, who may have been a green card holder. So it's not to say that people who are not U.S. citizens, are the ones who commit these acts. You can also be committed by U.S. citizens who either come here with some idea in their minds, some radical idea, or become radicalized as a result of what they're exposed to once they become citizens. And again, not just citizens, but people who might be born here.
Yeah, born here.
And the people who surround them and the ideas that surround them and what they see on the internet and those type of things are the influences that drive them to commit these horrible acts.
So a lot made of the type of defenses that were up in the French Quarter. I know the police chief, the mayor, the governor talked about the bollards that are being replaced ahead of the Super Bowl. But these types of truck and ramming attacks, we just saw one a couple of weeks ago in Germany. We have seen them in other parts of the world. We've seen them in other parts of the country here, New York, Charlottesville. Can you really, it's such an unsophisticated weapon. What can you do to sort of harden these very soft targets where you're going to have hundreds or thousands of people gathered on a sidewalk, in a bar district, in an entertainment district?
Yeah, it does get down into perimeter. I mean, certainly, inside of a building, a perimeter of inside a building, and the interior of it can be secured, people can be screened going into it. Maybe an example of this might be just New Year's Eve in Times Square, where the police do cordon off the entire area. There's a plan to kind of divide up the various groups of people into certain more containable numbers. But people are screened going into the area, and they also put large cement blocks across the road and on the sidewalk to prevent this type of incident from taking place. So, it is taking these type of events, can be secured. It does take more planning, takes resources, and also takes planning and thinking, into the bad guy's mindset. And here, what appears to be coming out is that the police did have at least a vehicle across the street where the Ballard, I guess, would be coming up from the street, would have been, had some problem, mechanical issues. But the question is, what about the sidewalk? And, we've seen some, parades and other events around the country where people, where officials do put vehicles straight across, like from building to building, and no one can come down unless they're going to use a tank to come through. So there would be some questions certainly raised about this very issue. I'm sure as time goes along into kind of look at this retrospectively and diagnosing what went wrong. But there are some good examples of where, as I just mentioned, Times Square being one of them, where you can secure a perimeter with tremendous amount of resources. Knowing
kind of what you know about the agency and how we are in this investigation, how do you kind of see this hunt for accomplices moving forward? Is this going to be a quick search, or are there sort of things that investigators are immediately going to focus in on and see if they can answer?
Well, again, unless
I guess I'm asking because you're in a really crowded area, right? It's New Year's Eve, Bourbon Street. There's thousands. It's not hard to kind of just blend in with other people who may have been running away, right?
Yeah, and I think the suggestion here is that there were other people involved with this individual who helped him prepare for this event, who may not actually have been there, as the vehicle went down the street, but perhaps had were some assistance in planting the other IEDs that they've referred to. Perhaps it was in facilitating the acquisition of a weapon that he used, or materials used to create the IEDs, or in some other way providing some either material or even emotional support to this person to commit these acts. So, it will be a matter of kind of culling through, as we've seen in many of these investigations. It's going to be culling through, social media, computer, phones. It was even discussed that there's, information that can be gleaned from the vehicle itself through its navigation system. And if a phone was paired with the entertainment system at some point, there may be that type of residual information. So, there'll be kind of a very quick review of this, particularly given the fact they've now put off the Sugar Bowl game by one day, and want to make sure that as they prepare for that event, is that there are no other kind of dangling participles, and no other people out there who are part of a larger plan, or if there was some type of multi-faceted attack that was in their offing.
I imagine this question will be asked as well, certainly in the weeks moving forward, but whether or not this was an intelligence failure.
Certainly, that's going to be one of the questions. I think, the fact that he was a U.S. citizen, there were these, we've seen, unfortunately, in many of these incidents, that there have been kind of what the behavioral scientists say will be leakage, or kind of we would refer to as breadcrumbs. There'd be things that are out there that maybe some others, maybe not noticed by law enforcement or intelligence sources, but certainly people around this person who saw activities, who were concerned, who may or may not have said something. Could this person have been, put on a watch list, but not specifically targeted because there wasn't enough information? We don't know that yet, but all those things are certainly fair game and certainly need to be looked at, because it's tragic what had happened, and it's unfortunately that as these tragedies unfold, is that we do learn more, and you hate to have that as a learning curve, but it is what happens, whether it's from a security standpoint, a policing standpoint, from an intelligence standpoint. some intervention standpoint, that's what we learn. We hope we learn, and we hope that we do something about it once we do learn.
Do you have concerns about the Sugar Bowl, about the Super Bowl, about Mardi Gras, these other major events in the next couple of months? They're all happening in New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, at this point, certainly the population is shaken by this, by the game goers would be shaken by this. And as we go into those other events that you mentioned, certainly people would be very much looking for some confirmation and some affirmation that the security is in place, and that whether it happens to be from the kind of the forerunner of it, which is intelligence gathering and interdicting before something was to happen, or, down to the very rudimentary aspects of security around these sites, that it is in place. And that's going to be something that the authorities and politicians, the governors and governing bodies will have to do in order to make sure that tourists will come to these events.
I imagine a lot of that will come from just sort of the communications from officials at the federal, state, local level. This has to be a transparent I know that, at the news conference, they seem to get a little miffed that questions were being asked that it maybe provided too much information, but there has to be some transparency in all of this, doesn't there?
Some of these things that were being asked both at the news conference and that we might even ask ourselves at this point, could in some ways impede the investigation. And so therefore I realized that at this point, a lot of this information, isn't necessarily good to put out because it would affect where they're going with their investigation. But, once that all happens, and I think, Senator Kennedy of Louisiana, expressed his opinion quite well, as he often does, and quite eloquently. He did say that we will get transparency. We will understand what happened. We're going to bring these people to justice. And I think that's going to be needed in order to bring back the confidence of both the citizens of New Orleans, Louisiana, and those visitors who will be coming to these events over the next several months.
It was a horrible way to start the year. I know it's not how you and I planned on spending this day either, but I appreciate, Bill, you taking the time to put some of this in context, helping us understand these next steps now in what the FBI is going to have to do in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.